welcome to the African Utility Week studio. I'm Ashley Turon, Content Editor of ESI Africa. And with me today we have Mike Gratwicke, Managing Director and Co-founder of Riftvalley Energy. Welcome Mike, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks Ashley, it's a pleasure to be there, and I'm absolutely delighted to be able to spend some time with you.
Oh great, so wonderful you could join. So coming from Tanzania, can you paint a picture for us around the energy sector and what's happening there at the moment?
I think Tanzania has been in the news over the last few years as being a country that's evolving quite quickly. One of the main things about Tanzania is it's historically been, I would say, coupled to its historic hydro resources, and every time they get a drought, you get historic power cuts. So 5 years ago, it was characterized by very long power cuts, very expensive power, and the government decided to start making the most of the very large gas resources that they found now that have been ever growing. So a lot of investment has gone in recently into gas generation and is looking to be the very quick fix to a perennial interlink with the weather, and that's something no country can really afford. So the energy sector has been evolving quite quickly. However, the gas resources are going to take a little bit of time before they actually start to flow. And that creates quite a lot of opportunity for the small-scale generation sector, who really will need to fill some gaps in the next 4 or 5 years. There's been some very exciting developments in the renewable energy bidding framework that's been published but not launched. And I think that there will be a lot of international players participating in that over the course of the next couple of years when that does actually finally get into reality. While those ambitious targets are being set, we quietly carry on doing what we do in the south of Tanzania, where our services are really needed to serve some of the target population that we serve.
So with one of your core focuses being on Minihydro, how feasible are Minihydro projects?
Minihydro projects really pay the bills in any country. They are what started rural electrification programs in most of the developed countries that we know. Germany in the 1800s, US in the 1800s as well. That's what really got rural electrification going. So it's not new technology, it's not rocket science, it's actually really simple stuff that only recently private sector has been really allowed to partake in. And the fact that we are allowed to partake in and have been working there for the last 10 years is very, very exciting for us. It does pay the bills, it's the highest margin, it keeps the lights on at night. It's not like solar, whose costs are diving, but don't work at night. We find that it's a very plausible long-term technology that it's 100 years proof, let's put it that way.
Okay. You also focus a lot in delivering hydropower through decentralized systems to remote areas. What would you say are some of the key design and implementation challenges that you face along the way?
Okay, well, that's quite a lot of big words in that one. I'm a little worried about this word decentralized generation, but perhaps let me make sure that everyone's on the same page when we talk about that. Because where you've got a spider web of a grid, and at the very end of the very long grid, there's customers and more customers beyond that. But anyone who's at the very end of a very long spider web typically gets really lousy voltage, very poor power capacity, very poor power quality. So where we see an opportunity and where we've been invited to participate by the energy stakeholders of government and related parties in Tanzania is to go to the very end of the grid, put in some generation facilities that stabilize that spider web and make it a much better quality grid, and then extend the spider web even further. So decentralized power systems are what we look at. We think it makes a big difference to the communities in which we live in and operate. It makes a big difference to the districts which we operate in. It makes a big difference to the country's efficiencies of their network as well. Generating power at the end of a long grid saves all the losses of getting the power there in the first place. So it's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. I don't know how many wins we can weave in there, but it really is a good thing. What are the challenges? Oh, multiple, but I wouldn't bore you with multiple challenges. But I can give you a practical example.
Okay,
what happened, one of the main substations that feeds the entire district that we operate in, which is a very large district, big chunk of Tanzania, quite honestly, the big substations blew up. It was a pity. So the whole district was without power for 3 months while repairs were being done. And we were lucky to be able to cooperate with the utility to energize the entire district for those 3 months. So the customers who otherwise would have had no power for that full period, because of our decentralized generation, that big word again, they barely saw more than a day or two's outage. So I think from a country planning point of view, from a grid resilience point of view, there's a huge advantage to all of the decentralized generation plans that we do. Oddly enough, all of our hydro sites that we specialize in are at the remote end of a long power line, and if not, then we build the power line so that they are, and then expand beyond that.
And just on the topic of water, is climate change a real threat at the moment, would you say, for hydropower?
Well, look, Cape Town having, for what I understand from a presentation today, having its 2 worst years in 100 years is a really big thing. That's my takeaway from this conference. For us, up in the south of Tanzania, which is historically a very good rainfall area, it's one of the areas flagged by the climate change experts to get a bit more rain rather than a bit less. We don't know how certain. What if they're wrong? Maybe they will be. But we think that climate change is going to affect us. We hope positively. Far more prevalent a problem for us is actually land use change. So all of our hydro sites are fed by large catchment areas with people living in them. Uncontrolled expansion and development does result in less water for us. So we do have to think outside the box. We already are investing in a wind project that will be able to supply some of the dry season energy that we're going to need in 4 or 5 years for some of our distribution networks, because we do see a fall off in the water that will be available. It's normal long-term planning of any utility.
Yeah. And Mike, what are going to be some of your key messages that you would like to leave the delegation at African Utility Week this year?
Look, I think one of the biggest messages that I would certainly like to leave with people here is throw down the challenge. What we've recognized ourselves, and we perhaps are a little bit eccentric that way, but I don't believe we're wrong. I think we're just perhaps slightly ahead of the curve. We've recognized the absolute underlying potential of the unserved rural population of Tanzania. Only to this point, 15% of rural Tanzania is electrified. That leaves 85% to be electrified. And no, they aren't very wealthy people. But I think with some innovation, some key technology, we find a way to do that profitably. And we regard that as the next billion-dollar opportunity. It's hard. It requires innovation, both from ourselves and from our finances. So what's the message? Help us solve this problem.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike.
Thank
Tanzania is definitely a region that we should keep high on our radar.
I think you should. It's going places.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.